I always wondered why nobody did it before me. I mean, all those comic books, movies, TV shows, you'd think that one eccentric loner would have made himself a costume. I mean, is everyday life really so exciting? Are schools and offices so thrilling that I'm the only one who ever fantasized about this? Come on, be honest with yourself. At some point in our lives, we all wanted to be a superhero.
Hmm. Always wondered why nobody did it before me. Hmm. Is this one of those like? Is this like one of the major like Marvel or DC, or is this kind of like an offshoot kind of deal?
It is not part of the DCEU or the MCU. No.
Okay. Hmm. What is it?
Kick ass.
Oh, okay. That makes sense for being kind of an offshoot one.
You and I have unfinished business.
Oh? And what's so stinking about it?
Non mi piace il feeling. Spirito Santo. I think this just might be my masterpiece.
Welcome to the Average Joe's Movie Club Cast. It's Justin.
And I'm Joey.
It's been a hot minute, but we are back in business after taking a couple months off. Busy times. But tonight we'll be talking movies, of course, and an early humanistic gangster flick from Akira Kurosawa, that is Drunken Angel. Plus, at long last, I'm going to be talking about one of my favorite films of all time on the podcast, Stanley Kubrick's Clockwork Orange.
And just a heads up, we do discuss our full thoughts on these films, so if you have not seen a movie, just skip forward to avoid any spoilers. Or pause, go watch, and, come back and listen. Whatever floats your goat.
Okay. And if you want to be part of the Movie Club Cast, make sure to hit subscribe and leave us comments, that bell, all that jazz. Because we'd love to hear from you and talk with us about movies. You can inspire us to do more episodes, right, Joey?
That's right.
All right, so, it's been a long time since we've gone on here. Yeah, spring was crazy with all the kids' activities. Had a bunch of summer camps going on at the beginning of camp. Summer camps camps at the beginning of summer. Yeah, so traveled out to Georgia for that, and a day camp in Somerville. So yeah, it's just been nonstop. So now the summer's chilling out a little bit, and yeah, they got 4th of July holiday coming up. Happy Independence Day, everyone. So yeah, you'll probably hear some fireworks in the background, even though it's 2 days out. But that's how it is.
Yeah, that's a very good possibility. I live across the street from a baseball stadium, and that's usually where they do the celebration, but they may actually wait till Tuesday to do it. I'm not sure. I haven't heard anything yet, so...
So, just had to pause twice to go turn down a TV that just randomly decides it wants to be on. And yeah.
Whatever spirits in the TV wants to be a part of the podcast.
Yeah, there you go. And then my cat Simba's like, so I guess I could try to show you here, Joey, with the camera. So Nolan has all his like Disney Infinity figures in a circle here, and Simba is like right in the middle of them.
I see that.
That is pretty snazzy. Him ruling the roost of little mini figures here.
Yes, he is the ruler of them all, the one cat to bind them.
Nolan's actually been playing LOTR on the Wii. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, he's all into what he calls retro gaming, the Wii console.
I mean, unfortunately, it kind of is. I mean, it is 2 generations behind, and we are about at the lifespan of the Switch where they should be getting ready to announce a new console soon. So,
Well, time keeps going.
yeah,
So
the
yeah,
years
we
keep
found
coming.
this. Mhm.
I was gonna say the years keep coming and they don't stop coming.
Nope. This Palmetto Gaming. So we were able to find like an aftermarket, like an old school brand. Have you heard of that one?
Yes, the old school classic. So it's like multiple. It's like a Retron. It's just a different version of a Retron. So
So yeah, it's the old, it's a Wiimote. I still got to look at it and see if I can pair it like both Wiimotes, like the aftermarket and the regular one, because he wanted to play that Lord of the Rings game. Yeah, so he's getting
you should
into.
yeah you should be able to pair both of them. Like they're just
Okay.
controllers, so it should be able to button on the back and the button on the front of the Wii under the door shouldn't be a problem.
Their games are in pretty bad shape. They kept crashing like mid whatever, and see like, hey, please see your Wii instruction booklet and reset. So we kind of
Um,
like try to clean the dust best we can, but still run into a little bit of errors.
they probably just need to be resurfaced, which I mean, finding somewhere that's going to have a resurfacer will be kind of tricky.
Okay,
Um,
that's not common anymore.
I mean, Blu-rays and 4Ks are protective coating, and I mean, Blu-rays have been around for what 10 plus years now. So,
Hmm.
getting a good resurfacer, I mean, you can try to get like a hand cranked one, but those don't work near as well. Um, I think there's probably a couple of retro stores in your area as big as it is that might one of them might have a resurfacer and will charge you a
Okay.
fee or something.
Hmm. Never even
So,
heard of that concept. Interesting.
yeah, I mean, I know the store here in town's got one, and pretty much anything that's not a Blu-ray. So, CDs. I mean, people were bringing CDs, DVDs, video games, whatever, get it resurfaced.
Okay. Then I ended up having the June from Hell. So, okay, I guess it started off. Okay, so among the bad things that my watch broke, so I had to replace that. My laptop broke, I had to replace that. My phone broke, I had to replace that. I got a speeding ticket, and it was just like one thing after another, and it was just total hell of everything just not working all of a sudden. It, have you ever had Murphy's Law smack you in the face that hard?
I mean, I'm sure. I mean, I don't recall off the top of my head, but I mean, I'm sure I've had where this is broken and this is broken. I mean, so no, I feel you. That's all. Just doesn't make for a good time on top of all the other stuff that you had going on and trying to do. It just sucks.
On the good side, I've turned into kind of a fitness nut the last little while. I've been heading to the pool and swimming a mile each time. That's been kind of, yeah, I mean, kind of, it's exhausting. I've spent the last 2 days off, but between all the swimming and the weightlifting, yeah, it's, kind of trying to get nice and fitter for summer. That's the constant goal. So,
there was one.
oh, the firework,
Yeah,
pop, boom, bang.
yeah, that one sounded like a big one.
So what's been happening with the beginning of your summer, Joey?
Really not much at all. Watched like the NBA finals, watched some of like the USFL, just working a lot until recently, and just had a buddy of mine who lives in Baltimore. He came down, so we got to hang out a few days while he was here, which was really good. Hadn't He comes down like once or twice a year, so it was good to see him. My kid is in town, so I'll be able to get to see her a bunch over the next few weeks. She When she comes down to visit, she switches between like a bunch of my different family members, so she kind of gets to see everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And I usually just take some days when she's at my mom's house, so she can see my mom and my stepdad, my brother, and my sister. And I usually just go and stay as well. So that'll be good for the month of July.
Cool. Yeah, pretty low key for us until we got another vacation. Well, a vacation coming up at the end of July, going back to Tennessee, Pigeon Forge area. So looking forward to that. But yeah, hopefully save some money here. Just Yeah, do the pool thing. Still got to go see the new Indiana Jones movie. Me and the kids watched Raiders last night, and probably watch Temple of Doom when this is over. So getting back up to speed with those, even though I guess the new one has quite the mixed
Mixed
feedback
reviews.
so far. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I haven't really heard anything, but I pretty much just I try to not pay attention to trailers, and I don't really go to the movies a lot. Although I don't know if you saw this I got this advertisement for Regal, so not tomorrow, but a week from tomorrow, they're doing it's a $5 mystery movie. So you pay $5 and you don't know what the movie is when you go to see it, but it's like an upcoming movie that's not out yet. And I was like, well, that's kind of cool.
yeah,
So,
I think I've seen that advertised, but I've never gotten a chance to go catch it.
because I mean, $5 for a movie is pretty cheap, especially at a
Yeah.
Regal. So
For some reason, whenever your glasses are in a certain position, it looks like the United States flag on them. So you're looking very patriotic this evening.
well, they are the ones that that when it's bright out, they transitions. There we go, and they do have a blue tint, so that must be something to do with it. I'm not really sure.
Nice.
So,
All right, let's talk movies. Movie podcast. This is we're coming up with the good and the bad and the ugly. All right, so I watched. So my categories are Mission Accomplished, Whiplash, and how about Neil and California. So yeah, Whiplash is the second one's two movies, but I'm kind of making that up right now. So.
okay,
Yeah.
I have The Disrespect, The Rule of Cool, and Assassins? Question mark.
All right. I can go first. Which one do you want me to start with?
Let's go with Mission Accomplished.
Mission Accomplished. I watched my last rewatch of a Best Picture winner, so I have officially reviewed every single Best Picture winner. Hooray, done with that series. And the last one was $1 Million Baby.
Oh, it's a good movie.
Yeah, it's a pretty solid one. I remember the controversy at the time was all about, like, I guess the euthanasia or whatever, like, since she's like an athlete who's like deteriorating, like, is it better to like try to pick yourself up? And because like at the end of the movie, he's like, oh, so where do you like gonna go back to school or whatever? He's like, no, you just gotta pull that cord. So some great acting. I mean, you got Morgan Freeman and that's the one time Morgan. So I remember writing in my review that so obviously Shawshank is Morgan Freeman's like famous voiceover, but this is the one who won Best Picture with $1 Million Baby. I mean, decent sports movie. I mean, it's a really fun underdog story, but man, like they foreshadow that stool like crazy, and it wasn't quite as like. Well, whenever I say cringe, it's like things that they're like so disturbing that it like makes you like, ugh. So like I kept cringing every time I saw that stool, and the actual break isn't as like dramatic as like what I was thinking, because they kind of like soften it a little bit, but yeah, very emotional film, and yeah, until the next Best Picture gets awarded, yeah, I am all up to date.
Well, we've already discussed it. We discussed it previously. I'm telling you, sweeping the Oscars next year is
Cocaine Bear.
So, if you've already watched it and reviewed it, you're golden, fam.
We shall see. Hey, maybe it'll be Asteroid City. I have to go see that one. I want to go see that one.
That one does look like it might be interesting. So
I'm up to those Wes Andersons. All right. I pity the fool that would disrespect Joey's first pick.
All right. So the Disrespect. This is Scream 6.
Oh, okay. I haven't seen it yet.
And all right. So slight spoilers. The Disrespect really legitimately has nothing to do with the movie, but you know how Scream does. They give you a scene, they give you some big starlet, and they kill her in like the first 2 or 3 minutes before they go on to the rest of the movie. And Drew Barrymore in the first one. So in Scream 6, the movie opens and it has Samara Weaving So she is the sacrificial lamb, and that's some goddamn disrespect to the modern day Scream Queen. I am sorry, Jenna Ortega, you're awesome, but Samara Weaving is like the horror Scream Queen, and that was just disrespectful. The movie itself was actually pretty good. They definitely played up on everything, like taking the next step like further from the fifth one. This was much better than 5 in my opinion.
Yeah,
Some good.
5.
I was not 5 is definitely near the lower part of the. It's a trash panda. Near the lower tier of Scream, or Scream 6, I think was a little bit more in the middle. Had good actors, lots of twists and turns. I mean, a lot of them are, especially if you watch Scream, you can kind of figure out. They definitely try to use a lot of subterfuge, but it was definitely fun. And I'm pretty sure it's on like Peacock or Paramount or something, so it should be easy to watch because I'm pretty sure that's how I watched it.
Okay.
So.
Yep, still gotta watch that one, and John Wick. Those are some of the new releases that I need to get to. Did you see the new the 3-hour John Wick?
I have not. So I went to go buy the Best Buy Steelbook of that, 4K, because I have the Best Buy Steelbook of 1, 2, and 3, like all of them individually. And I went to go pre-order it on 4, and I had to wait until I got paid, and they were sold out. So I ordered a Steelbook off of Amazon. That was the Amazon Steelbook. Amazon Steelbook got to me, and it was just a regular 4K with a slipcover. Mind you, that was like $50. No steel. So I returned that because and I went into Best Buy, and they still didn't have it. So I'm gonna have to try to find it at some point. In the Steelbook, I'm just probably gonna have to unfortunately pay more for it, but it is what it is. So.
Yeah, I have an interesting story about physical media on this night as well, but we'll get there.
Oh. All right. Tell me all about California.
California. So have you ever heard of The Wizard, the Mario or the Nintendo game kid movie?
What?
All right, so this thing came out in 1989. It has Fred Savage, and it's about this little video game prodigy who they basically there's a bunch of family drama, and then he says he wants to go to California, and so they hustle their way across arcades to get some money in order to get to California. This doesn't ring a bell at all?
Nope, not even a little bit.
It's probably not worth watching anymore. It's kind of funny to see how like they make this kid appear to be like good at gaming just with some pretty simple editing. And this movie was the unveil of Super Mario Brothers 3, so that's one of the credits to its name. It also was a commercial for the Power Glove in Universal Studios. Yeah, finally got Nolan to watch this with me the other night. It's one of those bad 90s movies where, they kind of baited you with like, hey, this is going to be about video games. It's actually about like a lot of family drama and kind of an emotional tearjerker things tacked on at the end. Now that I think about that, I'm not sure if I put that comment in my review. I think I just made fun of it in the opening. Anywho, I thought you already knew what I was going to talk about, which would make this a lot more interesting, but you don't. And so I guess we'll move on.
Yeah, they just never even knew it was a thing. So
yeah, it was one of those movies I would always catch like snippets of, while like watching like USA on a Saturday. So it was one of those movies.
I gotcha.
Assassins?
All right, Assassins ? Is a movie where you take a bunch of really good-looking people, shove them on a train, and have them try to kill each other.
Oh yeah, that was
not just any kind of train, the bullet train. Yeah. It was a fun movie. I mean, obviously, it's not gonna win any. It might win like editing or action awards or something like that. It ain't gonna win any like, acting awards kind of thing. But I mean, it had a bunch of big people. I mean, Aaron Taylor Johnson from Kick-Ass, which was an odd coincidence. Brad Pitt, Bad Bunny, Sandy B. So they all had like weird names, and you got this intertwining story with people. So it was fun. Definitely was not upset that I used Netflix to watch that. Like it was just a fun time. Again, it's an easy movie to watch, and it's got some violence and some comedy, and yeah, it was just a good time.
Yeah, that's another thing I did. Pulled the cord on a few different streaming services recently to save on the bottom line or whatever. So we lost Netflix. I cut the cord on Criterion and Amazon Prime. So yeah, we just have D Plus, and we can rent stuff on Prime too, of course. So
Yeah. I mean, we have Prime because my roommate gets it as a birthday present every year, so we don't have to pay for that.
hmm
Um, we are all on one big Netflix thing that also I don't pay for, and then like I pay for Paramount mainly for wrestling, but I traded it out to my buddy for no, I pay for Peacock, and he has Paramount, and he switched them,
okay,
and
yeah, that's what I
and
just
that's
remember was Peacock was on Paramount or
wrestling.
Peacock had the
Yes,
wrestling.
yeah, yes, Peacock has the wrestling, and I traded it for Paramount, and then like Hulu Live again also because my buddy was like, I want you to be able to watch wrestling and talk to me about it, so here's my login information. I was like, okay. So now I actually get to like watch sports and stuff. So that's how we watch like the finals, like a lot of the NBA playoffs and finals and stuff. So that was pretty cool. But yeah, Netflix is kind of ridiculous now.
hmm
So all right, well, all you got
Speak
left. Hmm?
Well, speaking of it won't win awards, I was just looking at my review from Bullet Train, and my quote was the whole the Thomas the Tank little spiel they go through.
Oh
how,
yeah.
how kids shows these days don't have a message. Good listen to old Thomas.
Oh, Diesel, you're a Diesel. Like yeah, that whole thing was fantastic. All right, so hit me with the whiplash, and I'm assuming this is not a movie with J.K. Simmons and Miles Teller.
So I'm gonna talk about Iron Man 2 and The Flash now, because I said Whiplash and Neil. So Whiplash is the bad guy from Iron Man 2. So this will used to be like one
Mickey
of the
Mickey
Mickey
Rourke,
Rourke.
right?
Yep.
Yep.
So Iron Man 2 was my least favorite Marvel movie for a long, long time. But revisiting it, it actually has some pretty good writing and character moments. But there's a lot of build-up for this Whiplash character, and they beat him in 2 seconds each time. So that's real frustrating about the movie. And it's very anticlimactic, and then it's your typical oh, he lost his mojo, now he can't help anybody, but now he gets it back, and now he can. So it's one of those kind of stories. But not quite as bad as I remembered, since the writing is decent and the characters, and it's definitely a very, very foxy Black Widow in that one.
I was about to say the introduction of the best MCU character,
Yeah,
Black Widow.
you're not lying. So yeah, Iron Man 2, appreciate it a little bit more than I used to. And then I probably should talk about The Flash, because
Hold on. So you disliked it more than Hulk, or the Incredible Hulk, whichever one that one is called, and Dark World.
Dark World debatable, but I like Incredible Hulk better than it.
Ooh. Okay. Continue on to I'm assuming this is Ezra Miller Flash that we're talking about.
Yeah, so yeah, the Flashpoint, the Flash, yeah, Keaton into the DCEU, all that deal. Yeah, that was a fun show. A lot of people complaining about the CGI being wonky. I thought it actually worked with how they set it up. Are you gonna be catching this in theater, or not really good timing?
I'm not gonna go to theater. I mean, also, I don't know if I care enough to watch the movie. Like I liked the TV show with Grant Austin, and really thought that they missed the ball with having him be the Flash, especially when it came out that Ezra Miller is a piece of shit. and then they could have just replaced him with Grant Austin, and you could tie it into your TV shows and all of that jazz. But I don't know. I think I'm really on like superhero burnout. Like I haven't seen that. I haven't seen
Spider-Verse 2 is
Wakanda.
really, really good.
I haven't seen the new animated Spider-Man. I haven't seen Wakanda. I haven't seen Guardians. I haven't seen Ant-Man. Yeah, so like the last 4 or 5 superhero movies, I think the last thing I saw was Thor: Love and Thunder.
Okay.
Um,
I think
which
I caught up on all those.
which
But yeah,
I'm
there's
in
hits and misses, and I think I'm looking for something much different than most folks with these. Go ahead.
I don't know. Also, like I'm sure you've noticed, like this year, I just haven't been watching movies. I don't really know why. It's not that there's like a lack of movies. I have a shelf full of them, and there's tons of stuff. I just haven't been watching a ton of them. It's like a very slow year. Like I'm at like 20 new watches halfway through the year, and normally I'm at 50 plus by now. So
Yeah, I don't know what it is either. Like normally I would be able to be watching. Like I've been watching the Criterion's like in spine order now, and like I have like a Bergman or something up next, and it's been a while since I've gotten to that. And it's mostly just the kids just want to watch Marvel movies night after night after night, and I'm like, yeah, I guess I could rewatch that. Yeah, I guess I could watch that. Okay, let's take a break on these Marvel movies and let's watch Indiana Jones. But they're actually kind of reluctant, which is at some points, which is kind of weird that they're so obsessed with this one franchise that they want to keep going to it. But I guess makes sense in some entities as well. But yep, venting on my movie debates. Anywho,
speaking
the
of
rule
that,
of
did
cool.
you? Okay. The rule of cool, that is reference to the D&D movie.
Oh, yeah.
So if anybody's ever played D&D, hopefully you had a DM who, this doesn't really make sense, but it sounds really fucking cool, so I'm gonna let it happen, kind of thing. So the rule of cool.
Okay.
And I know this movie kind of got mixed reviews. I'm a newer D&D player. I'm not even gonna front. I'm only in like my 3rd or 4th campaign. And I just started just a few years ago, but
They're mostly positive on this.
yeah, it had a lot of nods to things within the game, even that I barely have played knowing. There were some other things that my roommate had to explain to me, like the fat dragon. But the fat dragon in and of itself was still pretty funny. And so it was just a lot of cool nods and a lot of good special effects. You had a good cast. So it was just again just another kind of big, dumb, fun, easy movie to watch.
Yeah, I had a good time with it as well. Been a minute. So what's the deal with the fat dragon?
Oh, he's just an actual character in the game that you can encounter. I assume fight because he's a dragon. I don't remember. It's just he's an actual in-game thing. So that was a straight like reference. The other thing that they could do with D&D, because you have so many classes and there's so many worlds, and they even mention they mention like Baldur's Gate and other places, which is where the campaign that I'm in now currently is taking place, is in Baldur's Gate. There's so many more things you can do. You can have different people play the same roles. Like obviously not the same character names, but like, you can have another person be a barbarian, or you can have instead of like an orc barbarian like Michelle Rodriguez was, you could have, a human barbarian or whatever, and have all sorts of ways. So this is a way like where they could make multiple movies, and it would feel, familiar because it's to the people who like D&D, but it would also feel different because you can do so much different stuff with it. Obviously they're all going to be popcorn movies, and there's nothing wrong with that, but so
Was the little the chest that was like a trick in the maze, was that like a reference? Because
are you talking about the mimic? You're talking about
there's this chest in the maze that when they went to like get gear out of it, it like came to life and attacked them.
Yes, that's called a mimic. So
Okay.
that is in D&D. That is in like Dark Souls. Pretty much that is like an RPG like mainstay staple that you go to open the treasure chest, and it is not a treasure chest. So like today's like if you were to do a modern day setting, it'd be like an Amazon box, um, or something like that. But yes, um, and they do have giant teeth, and usually like the ones in like Dark Souls have giant legs, and yeah. So if you ever like watching like Twitch or like via like VODs or anything, and you're watching something like Dark Souls or maybe even a Skyrim or something like that, I don't know if Skyrim and Witcher have them, but it would make sense if they did. And you see people just like swinging their swords at chests before they open them. It's to see if they're mimics.
Okay.
And in one of the Dark Souls, the chain goes one way if it's real, and the chain goes the other way if it's a mimic. So all you have to do is like look at this chain on the floor, and you can know ahead of time, and you can either just avoid it or you can like get the lowdown attack on it first. But
Neato.
burrito indeed.
Cool. Yeah, that definitely felt like a reference. I was like, yeah, that's probably something.
Then like the gelatinous cube was also a reference. I know some people might have, because that's the thing. You can walk into a gelatinous cube and you're just kind of stuck there and you kind of die. So that was an interesting way that they kind of like got around that and used that to get out of the maze, which was pretty cool.
One thing I enjoyed is how like even though like we're just kind of thrown into this like world of D&D, like it all felt pretty familiar, like based on like what we know of like LOTR and stuff. So it kind of feels like it played off of like other fantasy stuff, but like for its own game.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. I mean, with it having been around since what the 70s or whatever, it's been around 40, 50 years now, and all the
playing other things.
Yeah, and so many, and all the different like fantasy stuff, and then how much stuff did we pick up? People who had never even heard of D&D, but really like Stranger Things, and that's a major point in Stranger Things. So.
Oh yeah. All right. You want to get into this Akira Kurosawa movie?
Hell yes.
Drunken Angel is from 1948. It's a Japanese Yakuza film from Kurosawa. And the IMDb synopsis was: a drunken doctor with a hot temper and a violence-prone gangster with tuberculosis form a quicksilver bond. A quicksilver bond. And I thought it was interesting to pull the description from Criterion, which, they want you to buy the disc. So this is what this reads. In this powerful early noir from the great Akira Kurosawa, Toshiro Mifune bursts onto the screen as a volatile, tubercular, that's a word, a tubercular criminal.
I guess so, instead of just a criminal with TB, but okay.
Oh my God, why would they throw in that description?
Because it sounds...
they just say he's a terminally ill criminal? God. A tubercular, who strikes up an unlikely relationship with Takashi Shimura's jaded physician, set in and around the muddy swamps, back alleys of post-war Tokyo. Drunken Angel is an evocative, moody snapshot of a treacherous time and place, featuring one of the director's most memorable violent climaxes. I don't know about that part, but there's some shades of truth in there, I think.
I mean, the climax, we'll get there. Memorably violent seems to be a little bit of a oversell to get you to buy the disc, like you said, which I do own the disc, but I did buy it secondhand for pretty cheap, so I can't say anything. But, so yeah, let's go.
I do appreciate you recommending this one. Now that I've seen most of the Kurosawa like heavy hitters, like I feel myself less drawn to like these earlier gangster ones. But yeah, it's good to dip into these and get more of this Kurosawa catalog under my belt. Man, these old Japanese movies look so much older like than they actually are. This is from 48, but it looks like it's from like the 30s with how the black and white film stock is so kind of more lower quality and scratchy looking.
Yeah, I mean, the one I watched was a DVD, and I don't know if this one has a Blu-ray upgrade or not. So I've been kind of interested to see like how it could have been restored that way. I'm guessing like you watched it on the channel, or I know you said you got rid of the channel, so
I just rented it.
Okay, fair. Yeah, no, I mean, it definitely looked scratchy, and I could definitely see where there were spots where you could tell, um, like that, that it was on film and not digital. And I actually kind of like that on older movies. Like I feel like I'm watching it closer to how it was meant to be, kind of thing. But also, yes, as far as the having watching older Kurosawa movies, like I mean I've got that Eclipse set, and I've watched a few of the older ones, and I haven't seen all of the newer ones yet. I've seen a lot of them. He's actually now my second most watched director, so
Okay.
so
It's funny in that one scene that it actually was raining. I was just like kind of looking at the screen hard. I was just like, is that just scratches or is that rain? Okay, yeah, it's definitely rain at this point. So, okay. This was definitely not what I was expecting whenever I saw the title, Drunken Angel. I thought the Drunken Angel would be like your gangster, and he's like this, like crazy John Woo kind of like shoot 'em up kind of gangster type. But no, this is much more of a humanistic story.
man, there's been a
This is
time
old.
where we could have got a John Woo Kurosawa crossover. That would have been hot. Anyway,
Well, I'm blanking. What are you talking about?
no, I said, I was just like, oh, you said it, you were thinking it was going to be like this John Woo shoot 'em up, and I was like, oh my god, if we could have ever lived in a timeline where they did a crossover movie. Because I mean, Kurosawa made movies into the 90s. Woo was big and like started in the 70s and was big in the 80s. Like that could have happened. I mean, I know they're from different countries and there's all of that stuff, but man, that'd have been a hell of a movie. Like Kurosawa's like cinematography and like how to tell a story, and all of John Woo's like crazy action and shit. That would be like the dream. But anyway, continue along.
Okay. So yeah, definitely wasn't expecting our Drunken Angel to be this. What's his name? Sonata. He's this old doctor, heavy drinker, and definitely interested in helping out everyone, but reluctant to do so to the ones that aren't making his community such a good place to live. Talking about the Yakuza, one gangster in particular, Matsunaga.
Yeah, Mifune.
Yeah. So, let's see here. Oh yeah, I wanted to put in a note. So yeah, the main bit of like action we do get is like the very, very, very end, whenever Mifune is getting his revenge. But throughout this, as I was flicking through it, he's like jumping on the doctor quite a bit, like going after him as well. So I guess there's a bit of like dramatic action.
Yeah, I mean he's definitely projecting, because as they tell you in the description and as you see through the movie, like he has tuberculosis, and they're like, we can treat it, we can help it, and he's angry about it. Like maybe it makes him feel weak. Like he's in
rips up
denial.
the scans.
Yeah, he thinks he's like not a tough guy, even though they have an X-ray where he's got like a huge hole in his lung, and they're like, guy, stop being stupid. So yeah, no, he definitely is super violent.
And him actually coughing up the blood at like the very end, where it was like spewed everywhere. That was pretty dope.
Yeah. He definitely, I mean, obviously it's Kurosawa. Of course he did good shit in the movie. I thought it was funny that at the very beginning, he goes in, Mifune goes in to see the doctor, and he's like, oh, I slammed my hand on the door. There was a nail in it. And he pulls a bullet out, and he's like, oh, that's a nail, huh? And so
don't you have any painkillers? Not for you.
He's like, I'm expensive. I'm going to charge you like double. So maybe that was why he's so mad to start with.
So yeah, a big aspect of this movie is that they're swamp. I guess that's by the town. It's real nasty looking. They like dump their like trash and stuff in there, and I guess there's probably some like fallout stuff from like the war in there too. So yeah, big metaphor
and shit. Like yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I do recall that. That was kind of pretty awkward.
But they did have like two scenes at different times where you were almost level with the swamp, and you could see the wind blowing across it and making the ripples, which was kind of cool, and was like a really nice shot. And it actually made maybe the swamp's not so bad. But then it's like you see them, like, hey kids, don't go in there, and it bubbling and them dumping stuff in it, and just it being dirty and nasty and all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah, so it kind of made for a cool metaphor for like I guess the corruption that's like going on with the Yakuza and like how the area is not so nice after the war and so forth. So, yep, Kurosawa laying in those themes pretty well. Where I guess since this is one of his earlier ones, maybe that's it, this one feels a little bit more heavy-handed than for like High and Low for example, where High and Low really kind of hits you with that theming like it entertains you like throughout and then really hits you with like the humanist stuff at the end. Where this it was kind of woven throughout this. Not that that was a bad thing, especially for one of his earlier films.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, High and Low is like, an actual just master class in movie making in general. So, and it has
Shoot.
one of my
If I
favorite.
remember the Stray Dog, I'd have to go back and look at the synopsis to remember what happened
Stray
in that
Dog
one.
was the one where the cop lost like his wallet, or he lost his gun and was trying to find
All
it.
right. Mm-hmm.
It was not as good as Drunken Angel, in my opinion.
Okay.
So yeah. And actually Stray Dog was, I think, a year after this movie, but I remember it feeling like when I watched it that that it was older, but it was actually, I think it's a year older than this one. I think it came out after this one, but
Got a kick out of the doctor chasing the kids away from the swamp because, like, yeah, if they get in there and they get typhus, then he has to deal with that shit. So he's like, stay out of there. And then also a good touch to have like mosquitoes be bothering everybody because of the lingering presence of the swamp.
yeah.
Good details.
And it's another thing that I've started noticing, and like between watching like some of Kurosawa's older movies and and Bogey's movies and that stuff, is these people are, it's always summer, or implied that it's summer, and the men are always in these full suits, or they might have the jacket off but the shirt, and they're all covered in sweat. You can see like the pit stains. Like in this movie, they were constantly like wiping like their neck and their brow, and it's like that's actually probably wasn't really supposed to be in the movie, but they couldn't really get around it back then. And they go into the one bar at one point, and he like, you see him like cut a fan on because there's no AC, and it's just like,
Okay.
good Lord, I'm glad we live in the technology age that we do, because boy.
Were you tracking any like I mean, there's like little romances that happen throughout this thing, and then there's the cool scene where like they're like playing some kind of like betting game at a table, but did any of that stick with you? Like, I
So
barely
like
remember that was in there,
it
and I
felt
saw it a
like,
few hours ago.
I mean, yeah, we both watched this today. So, so you had the girl who was like the bartender in Mifune's. Well, it wasn't Mifune's bar. It was the Yakuza's. It was the Yakuza's bar, but it was in his territory. And apparently, she had a thing for him. And at the end, she was begging him to like leave and go into the countryside with her, and they could start a life, and he could get medicine and feel better. But he had the girl that he was like living with, who was like a dancer, but then ended up going to Okada, who was the old school gangster who had gotten out of jail for like slicing a dude's face. And his old girl was the doctor's. I don't know if she was his assistant or was supposed to be implied that they were together, but because she was acting like she was going to go back, and he was just like, the hell you are, but never because you're mine, but because he was terrible. It was like, he cheated on you and gave you VD and all of this. Like, why would you go back to him? So I mean, yeah, there was some relationships like that. I do remember them betting, because he had to like borrow money, and it was like, we're betting 100,000, and I'm like, okay, but I don't, it's like, we're betting the odds, and it's like, I don't know what that means. Like, I'm assuming there was dice under there or something, but
Yeah, it's nice to think about the doctor's outlook here, where he's really like struggling with like how terrible conditions are, but he's there to like help, and he has to bite his tongue, and he has to be really motherly to this guy, but yeah, he keeps bandaging him up reluctantly. So neat to see that kind of character. I wanted to mention, so we get this guitar guy on the other side of the swamp pretty often, and he's just playing this one tune, and all of a sudden this other guy comes up and he plays another tune, and they're like, oh, that's a different tune. It was just a really funny way of doing like diegetic music, where it was like, okay, they're definitely playing over there, and it's the background music at the same time, and we're gonna have a kind of a forceful switch here.
Yeah, and that was the Okada that I mentioned, and the girl was like, the doctor's assistant or whatever was like, "Oh, that's Okada's. He must have got out. That was his favorite song." And he even tells some guy who asked, the guy who asked him, it's like the Killer's anthem. And I was like, "Oh shit, okay,
Oh
that's
yeah,
that's kind of just straight to the point."
that was a
Um,
badass line.
yeah.
All right. Did you ever get a sense that the gangster character was ever like on board with like actually trying to get better? Because I guess at one point I think he goes off the deep end and gets real drunk, and the doctor gets real pissed at him about like trying to go back on his TB diagnosis. But do you ever feel like he's ever like on a better route at any point?
So I feel like he, because he got like super drunk and was at the house, and he gets up the next morning and he ends up, running into Okada, or goes with Okada, and Okada wants him to have that drink, and he's like, "No, I'm not feeling well." And he's, he challenges him. "This is supposed to be my celebration for being free, drink or whatever." And then, he ends up, he's like, "Just one drink." And then the next thing you know, you see him at like the dance hall, and he's so drunk he's like passed out. And it just kept seeming like throughout after that, going forward, the whole rest of the movie, as his health kept rapidly deteriorating, that he just got drunker and drunker, easier and easier, or just stayed like in a constant state of drunk. And if he wasn't drunk, it was, he's just so sick that he should be in bed, and he just doesn't listen. So like I think there was like a brief moment where he was going to be, but then the world in which he lived challenged,
And
challenged kind of like
and
his
he's like bickering
manhood.
with the doctor at the same time. So even if there was progress, it didn't really feel like it.
Yeah.
Cool. Um, so what's your overall rating on this one?
Oh, we're not going to talk about this other stuff, like what
We
happens with
are.
the main. Okay. I put it at 3.5, and then I sat there and like thought about it and moved it up to a 4.
Okay. I'm still kind of. I get probably a 3.5 on this one. Like I said, I enjoy how like he throws themes in this story, and I thought the characters were good, but a lot of the character drama was kind of a slog. Finally leading up to this actual like climax that we do get, where so he overhears them talking about him. His ears were burning big time. It's just like, yeah, we're gonna have to get rid of this guy, as and like make him kind of a sacrifice in this whole little ground turf war scuffle. And so that's what leads to the pretty decent fight at the end. Was that what glue they were tracking through or
Paint.
something? Oh, it's
Paint.
paint. Okay.
Yeah. I did think it was interesting when we get to that fight. Right before the fight, he's like sick and staying at the doctor's house, and they're talking about Yakuza, and he was like, "Yakuza aren't tough. They just try to scare people or whatever." Or it said something like they're not tough, or they don't really know how to fight, or something of that nature. And then you get to this fight scene, and it's a very sloppy fight. It's not super choreographed like a fight scene. I mean, obviously it was choreographed, but it wasn't super nice and tight feeling. Like it was, very sick guy and like an old guy, and so they both have knives, but can't get the blow. They're tripping and falling, and then eventually, um, Okada's got he's got the dagger or whatever, and Mifune's character runs down the hallway, and the girl had run out before and knocked over a can of paint, so he starts slipping into paint and like throws a paint can at him, and then so they keep fighting in the paint, so you can see him covered in the paint while they're like rolling around, and now there's people watching, and he finally Okada gets the death blow, stabs him in the gut, and he goes out onto like a balcony and falls part of the way through it, and is just kind of laying there and just dies.
Yeah. Which I
And
thought was gonna be the end of the movie, but we got a little postlude.
yeah, they skipped forward. I mean, obviously only like a few days or a couple weeks or something. It wasn't a very long skip. Um, That's when we learned that the homegirl who from the bar who was trying to like get with Mifune had his ashes and we're going to take him out to the country and bury him. And she even mentions that Okada, the big boss didn't claim his funeral, so she had to pay for it. But then Okada went to jail, I guess, for stabbing him, and it was somebody else's turf now. And then that's when the little girl who had been a patient before, a TV patient who was getting better and better, had graduated high school.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And he's going to take her out for some sweets. Was kind of your little happy ending on all of this.
Yeah, he was like, "Where do we buy sweets?" And they're like, "The sweet store." And they're just kind of walking through town, arm in arm.
Yep.
To go get some sweets.
Did you ever feel like the doctor's drunkenness was like, I think it was like a detail in this, but it wasn't like a part of his character, I didn't think. I mean, yeah, he's really into drinking, but it wasn't like changing the way he was a doctor.
I mean, I did think it was funny. He'd be like, "Don't drink," and then we'd just take a swig. Like there was the scene where he boiled the water and poured it into like 100% grain alcohol, and was like swigging it from the bottle. And at first, I thought it was like rubbing alcohol, and I was like, "Bro, what are you doing?" Like,
he boiled water to like dilute the pure alcohol.
Yeah.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, because I thought he was gonna make like tea or something, and no, he just poured it in alcohol. And it's like, bro, you are all right. I mean, he was just, you never saw him like make a fatal mistake or something because he was drunk. He just was always drinking.
And I think the only mention of it was like the kids teased him that he was the old drunk, but I just figured there might be more involved with him being like this drunk, with it being called Drunken Angel. But it's more about him being an angel, I guess.
I mean, maybe it was just back in the time it was maybe considered
we see as taboo enough. In other words.
Yeah, maybe it was more taboo then. I mean, obviously you can't be drunk 24/7 now either, but I mean, alcohol is such a big part of, especially, being Americans, where every sporting event is sponsored by some form of alcohol or has alcohol commercials or what have you. So.
Oh yeah. Cool. Well, thanks for bringing a Drunken Angel to the party.
I do what I can, fam.
All right, we are back and talking about my pick, A Clockwork Orange. So this is a 1971 post-apocalyptic science fiction crime comedy. Interesting. I guess that fits. Film, screenplay produced and directed by Stanley Kubrick, based on Anthony Burgess's 1962 novel of the same name. It employs disturbing, violent images to comment on psychiatry, juvenile delinquency, youth gangs, and other social, political, and economic subjects in a dystopian near future Britain. Yeah, that tracks. Cool. So, yeah, let's get into A Clockwork Orange. I first saw this, became aware of this movie because it was on my dad's DVD shelf. He was part of that whole Columbia House back in the day, so they would send him a bunch of movies at a time, and he would just check a bunch off of the card. And he said he enjoyed this back in the day, and so he got a copy and discovered it. And I just remember how dazzling it was to see this strange 70s aesthetic. It was my first Kubrick film. I didn't even piece together that him, Kubrick, or 2001, this, The Shining, and all that were all together. I would kind of notice based the DVD covers back in the day were just the white thing, and then it was white on. It was a white case with a picture of the movie, and it said Stanley Kubrick on the bottom. So I finally was able to make the connection that way, and I was like, whoa. This guy made all these movies, and he was one of the first directors where I really became aware of an auteur or whatever. So now you came to this much later, right?
Yes, I watched this for the first time. I was in the apartment before this. So, I mean, I don't know, 4 years ago maybe, somewhere in that ballpark. So I mean, I had seen other Kubricks, but I had never seen this. It might have been 6 years ago. It might have been like right after I moved into the other apartment. I don't remember, but yes.
Was it any kind of special list you guys were going through whenever you got to it?
I don't remember. What? I mean, I feel like you were involved in me watching this for some reason, but
Nope, pre-podcast.
it was pre-podcast.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. We just watched it.
Okay. I remember growing up watching this, and obviously it's naughty, familiar punches with like Nazi scenes in there, but it still has like this gritty political like kind of story, but has like it's told in this like child story way where you like what goes around comes around again kind of like feel to it. So for some reason that always really drew me to it, even though there is some really weird elements in there to kind of grapple with, and you kind of notice differently depending on when you're watching it. One of the biggest things like I noticed was I had a bunch of friends watch this with me in college, and like one of the guys like became nauseated during the opening assault scene, and yeah, he like stepped out of the room and was like, "Bailey, what's going on?" He's like, "Oh man, that's really disturbing to me." I was like, "Huh, okay." Never even really thought of it that way, and it didn't really dawn on me until I was analyzing it for my first Letterboxd review of it. How like the quirky, upbeat music. Like I'm such like a music person that I would focus mostly on that and like kind of get like manipulated into like thinking, oh, this is just kind of like for show or whatever, or for play, and like not to be taken literally or whatever. And so that kind of really diluted like the impact of like some of these really violent moments.
I mean, that seems obviously to be intentional, and I think kind of fits on theme once you get back to the end, or it's the middle, when we get to the Ludovico technique and they play Beethoven's music, and now he associates that with, pain and violence and all of that. So that seems like a full circle.
Yeah, I never even thought
there.
of the fact that that maybe they're giving us our own. They're training us to see the content their own way in the first half of the movie, like he's being trained later on. Very cool pickup, Joey.
I have my moments,
Yes,
not
you
all
do.
the time, but I do have them on occasion.
It's almost like a demented carnival, like we're walking into with like all this like Roman drawings on the wall, but they're all like with like penises and stuff, and it's like just such weird like for instance like the streets are all like drab and like look like post-Soviet block apartments or whatever, but then you actually go in the apartment and you have like gold walls and all kinds of crazy contrast and stuff. So much to take in visually with this movie.
The thing that stood out to me in his apartment the most was his bedroom door, that he had like a safe lock, like a number combination lock on his door. You don't see it when he comes in the first night, but you see it when he goes to leave the next day, and it's just, and I was like, that's crazy. Like, which I mean, I guess with, all of like the stolen watches and all of the and stolen money and all of that kind of stuff, and then the random snake in a drawer.
His booby bedspread.
Oh yeah.
One thing I I noticed until this time is his calendar. I think it's of Mozart, but if you look at it closely, it looks a lot like Alex whenever he's being brainwashed later on, like this whole thing. Like yeah, look back at that calendar. It's like definitely foreshadowing where we're going to go with the Ludovico technique. Cool
Okay.
stuff. Let's see. Oh yeah, I noticed in your review how this it is rapey, but when people like focus and describe on that, like you're not really taking into account like where it goes from there with like the brainwashing and stuff later on. So just to throw that out for any
Well, I mean, just because like they beat up the old guy, with the "What's so stinking about it" that's in our opening, and then they go to have the little gang fight with the other group, and those boys are trying to just straight up rape this girl, and out of the fact that they're there for a fight, prevent a rape.
Yep.
But then they do the home invasion and rape a girl, and then there's like rape in the Ludovico technique, and so yeah, it's just I guess maybe also they kind of raped his mind with that thing, but yeah, it was just more of a, hey, there's a lot of rape in this movie. Just if you're going in blind, be prepared. That is a thing. I don't think as a movie trying to like glorify it. And I know in today's society, and that's kind of a trope that's now frowned upon. It's like you can show violence in a lot of different ways without having to have someone be raped. They also when they do go through with it in the one scene, if my memory serves me, it's not a shown. It's happening, but it's not shown. They do show a lot of naked women, whether they're naked by choice or not. But
I think as far as they go with it in that particular scene, is he cuts her clothes open, which is very, very what's the word?
Aggressive.
It's
scary.
Like you're like imposing yourself on somebody else. So very So like that, very I'm not sure what the word is, but I think I'm getting at a point across. And he just drops his drawers straight there, and they're about to go at it, and the music gets very, very dark at that point. So it's totally acknowledging that is one of the most vile moments in there, with him putting the ball in the writer's mouth and taping that shut, and so we're seeing all the agony on his face of actually watching his wife be assaulted. Pretty much.
Yeah, that was.
She has PSD and ends up dying afterwards. So yeah, very, very nasty stuff there. I love how the movie opens up with the strange music and colors. It's like throughout the whole thing, like there's these very bright colors, and I wouldn't say most of the time they have any like symbolism to it, but it just, the stark contrast of the bright colors compared to like the drab setting is just such a neat look to me, which then goes right to Alex in his Droog outfit. And I was actually listening through I'm a dork. I think I bought like the Kubrick soundtracks album one time, and I was really listening close to this and The Shining's music, and noticing the similarities. I think it is actually the same sound person for both films, so it was cool to pick up on some of those.
I mean, that would make sense that he'd use the same person to do the music and stuff, and those movies aren't super far apart, so.
Right. I think the only one in between is Barry Lyndon, and that's a period piece, much different. I'm glad actually that you mentioned the NADSAC language, because I probably wouldn't come up with talking about that on my own. So like from like I've researched this film to death, so I've come across that like Anthony Burgess came up with that from like British slang and like Russian kind of mixed together. I did read the book probably about a decade ago, and I remember having to like read the whole thing out loud in order to actually kind of follow what was going on. So I think I understand most of the words now, and I actually use some of them. Like sometimes, like I'll wake up from a hangover and be like, "Oh, I got a pain in the gulliver." So.
I mean, in watching it most of the time, you can, based on the context, you can fill in the word that doesn't belong and fill in with what it's supposed to be. But it was more of just like, with there being no context, that it's a mixture between British slang and Russian. Like, it's just like, I mean, obviously, like, okay, this is some sort of
weird
slang
game.
And yeah, it's some sort of slang for, you know, this dystopian future in Britain or whatever, but also it just sounded so silly and dumb. Like, if this movie had came out in like 1998 or 2000, in that time period, I'd have been like, man, someone was trying to use witty dialogue or clever dialogue like Tarantino and fucking failed. And obviously this is well before any of that, but that's just I don't know, that irked me like throughout like the whole movie, and I can't. It just
Fair.
maybe it was because the whole movie. I know the description said comedy, and I guess maybe it's supposed to be somewhat satirical, but it's this
Oh yeah.
super serious tone, and then you have this very silly, or maybe almost even like childlike dialogue. Which, if it's childlike, I guess kind of makes more sense if he's like juvenile, kind of thing. Because I guess he
Yeah,
was
and he's
still
supposed to be a
school.
lot younger in the story than he's depicted, because I think Kubrick aged him up in the movie just to make it not so pervy in terms of like a kid and so forth.
Yeah. That, and if he's he's still a child when they start experimenting on him, like. So yeah.
Yep. Oh yeah, in terms of actually being in like regular jail and being able to qualify for the different treatment.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely a very, very horny movie, and I think that plays into like this whole like juvenile delinquency film where Alex is like a really, really smart guy, but he's like full of these urges and he wants to be in control, so he's a total dickhead to his pals in order to keep them in line until it gets a little too far. And yeah, I mean, great point about like the Nat sounding childish. I mean, you have like Rosie Docks and right, and but then like on a snap of a dime, like normally they're saying right, and they're jolly about it, but then like whenever he like forces them to obey, he's like right, and they're like right. So it definitely can it's interesting to see the same kind of element played differently depending on what's going on in the story.
Yeah, and like talking about where he tried to keep him in control to the point of like, hey, we, because he goes up and has like the three-way that's super sped up, but it's, I guess he's gone for a day or whatever, and they're like, we're worried about you, and we're gonna go do this and this, and you're not gonna make fun of this guy, and he's like, bet, and then like I thought he was gonna stab one of the guys, but he cut him, and he had to fight in the like the reservoir or whatever. Which kind of ends up setting up one of the pivotal moments in the movie a little while later. So.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yep. Sorry, heads all over the place. Go ahead.
So to that end, actually, so I just was thinking about this. So.
Okay.
They were like, we're gonna do this. This guy's in charge, or the other guy said he's gonna be in charge, and then they kind of have this fight, and he's like, I'm back in charge.
Yep.
And then they're like, hey, this is where we're going to go. This is, they're the ones that had all the information on this. So was this going to be a setup all along regardless for him to take the fall and to get rid of him? Or did they decide to do it after he, fought them and was a complete and utter douchebag?
I want to think that, they were... This hat they had the breakup and that's what led to it, but I mean maybe they always had it in their back pocket as well. And yeah, talk about a set piece there with the health farm, and it's a crazy cat lady doing yoga and she has an enormous phallic wobbling
statue piece of art, and there's like naked women on the walls and just like sex and all of that. And he beats her to death with it, which is kind of...
Yeah, he clocks her real good, and cool how it cuts to that art piece, but at the same time, like to see him like kind of cower in fear all of a sudden with this giant like penis statue is kind of interesting, and yeah, he's not near as brash whenever he's control's been forced away from him, which I think that's one of the huge themes in this movie is control. And go ahead and spit out the Clockwork Orange. Actual definition is an organic entity full of juice and sweetness and agreeable odor being turned into a mechanism. So do you kind of get the concept of what the Clockwork Orange metaphor is?
So yeah, an organic entity full of juice and sweetness. That sounds like a human.
Yeah.
Maybe not the agreeable odor part. And maybe not sweetness all the time. But yes, an organic entity being turned into a machine. It's a human being turned into a cog in the machine.
Yeah.
I'm sure maybe there's something deeper than that, but that feels like that's what's supposed to be hitting me in the face.
Well, and they're also taking like a person who's supposed to like, I guess, so so instead of like making them naturally like want to do good things through like teaching them and morality and all that kind of stuff, they're forcing them with brainwashing. So they're turning them into a machine, like you just said.
Yes, I mean because yeah, once he's in, so he goes downstairs after he strikes the woman, and she'd already called the cops, and then they hit him with a bottle of milk in the
Mm-hmm.
face and leave him there to take the
Yep.
fall, and he ends up getting murdered because the woman dies.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and they beat the shit out of him while he's in interrogation, and you see them, start the gaslighting, brainwashing, like you have to be here, you have to be here, you have to do this, you have to do this, and then he finds out about the Ludovico technique, which is definitely the brainwashing aspect,
Mm-hmm.
which is kind of probably kind of crazy realistically. Um, but he's 2 years in, and he's saying all the right things and doing all the right things, but no one really believes him outside of the priest.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um,
I was going to mention some of the excellent camera work throughout. Like, I probably won't gush through like all the different shots since I've probably seen them so many times. But like, I think one of my favorite is when they're coming up upon that the old drunkard, and like their shadows are like enormous in this real long hall. So that's a cool look. Um, One thing that's funny to notice about the drunkard is like he's complaining about like how society is all focused on like the space and stars and stuff, and they're not really putting any focus on like human problems anymore. So all good stuff to come into like the theming of this deal. Also, this time I actually noticed that like a lot of like usually with fisheye lens, like you think of like peering through like a door like viewer, but like
mm-hmm.
it's like a slight fisheye lens here where it's kind of slightly skewed on either side in several of the shots that just really enjoy that the look that gives the weird look that it gives it. Jumping back just a sec to that initial assault, I just wanted to point out like I know I already mentioned like it's like a demented carnival slash like the quirky music and so forth, but I mean, like Billy Boy and his thugs are like throwing that girl around like she's not even like a person. She's like a rag doll, and whenever she runs away, it's very theatrical. So just tons of elements in here to try to dilute what is actually on screen, which I find fascinating. It's also weird to think of this as like a dystopian sci-fi movie. When it looks so run down and crummy. Alphaville from Godard is kind of a good comparison too, because like that's kind of a noir futuristic film, but nothing in it looks futuristic. It's just how things like work that come off a little futuristic. So kind of neat to see movies play with their environment in atypical ways. I mean, who expected the Star Wars to be like what medieval times in space, right?
It's a samurai movie in space. Yeah.
Samurai movie, yeah, that's better.
Yeah, it's a samurai movie in space. So it's just a space western, because samurai movies are westerns, and yes, so they're space wizards and cowboys basically.
Yeah. A few times ago watching Clockwork Orange, I was a little scared like I was going to get into like fatigue with this show. Like I was just going to be watching it too many times and not like really appreciating it anymore, and maybe like feeling bored with it. But even this last watch, like I started watching the movie and I got too tired, and so I started it right back over, and I actually got all the way to the prison scene. So I was pretty much halfway through, but then we started it back over, watched it with my kid. he It was interesting talking him through it. That's a whole nother conversation, but yeah, it was interesting getting his perspective on some stuff, and he's been through sex ed at school, so I was like, should he see this? And we talked about some stuff, so yeah, but I'll leave that outside of the podcast.
Fair.
Where are we at?
Oh
yes, the fact that yeah, it just flew by for me, and yeah, tons of stuff I recognize or I picked up on for the first time here. Let's see. Alex cutting the writer's clothes. Oh yeah, mentioned how the scene at the writer's house, which is only like 10 minutes into the movie, is probably one of the most vile moments.
Yeah, and I had mashed up that part with the part at the end where he's being carried by the giant man. Like I
Mm-hmm.
had mashed those two together, because we got to the thing and I was like, man, I remember this being much later in the movie, and it's like, oh, yep, okay.
Yep, goes around, comes around. And it wasn't until this time where I was just like, like Alex's long nose kind of gives you that Pinocchio vibe. Once again, a storybook. And even Pinocchio's story of like figuring out what's right and wrong is kind of eerily kind of similar. Okay, already talked about the drab blocks versus all the colorful stuff. We've already talked about Beethoven a little bit. Yep, and I mentioned the calendar thing. Cool, cool. Okay, so yeah, this is the theming thing I came up with this time for Clockwork Orange, which is it's a political film about control, with how Alex takes control of these his henchmen essentially, and they go be villains of the night. He mocks the principles taught by religion, ignores his parents, all like the social norms of like becoming a decent member of society. He totally rejects that and has to be institutionalized in order to pretend to be good, and then pretend his way into this the science experiment.
Yeah, definitely a very rough turn of events, like chain of events in his life, which I mean, definitely karma to a degree, because he obviously was not a good person, but definitely still didn't deserve that treatment in quotation marks, the experiment.
When his basically his like youth officer counselor guy comes to see him, and he's like in his in his briefs there in his mom's room. Do you
Yeah.
recall this scene with the green bedspread? Do you happen to see what Mr. Deltoid drinks after that conversation?
Oh yeah, he drinks the water with the fake teeth in him. Yeah, that was
Well, yeah, with the
gross.
dentures.
Yeah, yeah, that was gross. As someone whose both my grandfathers and my dad have had dentures, and seeing those in the water and stuff at night, and it's just like just.
The 2001 record in that store before, or the record store before he seduces those two girls, before the montage of the threesome you're talking about. Of course, they had very, very phallic suckers, as I think Alex reached in and took a little lick of his own. Yeah, we got to a few of these things already. Very cool. I was going to say, like, the whole vibe of the prison definitely gives you that kind of starts echoing that whole Nazi feel. I mean, like how they're like marching around and 655 321. This is how you will be referred to now. Blah 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 blah. So, okay.
Yeah, because the guards all take these very pronounced like steps and stomps when they turn and walk. Like they're not goose stepping, but they do. You hear their shoes with the heels like clack on the floor. It's all just very, very pronounced.
Getting back to that scene you had talked about, where Alex is once again, he's brown nosing with the prison chaplain or whatever, and he's studying the Bible, but like where like he thinks he's like probably looking for like the glory of God moments, but really Alex is all about like the the sex and violence that the Bible has to offer, and imagines himself in those positions, which Malcolm McDowell went on to be in Caligula, so not too far off with some of his visions there.
Ooh, okay.
I think that's being released by somebody. I think's releasing that in 4K coming up, so that'll be interesting.
Oh, is it going to be the cut version or the full? The full. Here's a bunch of actual porno in the middle of this movie.
Speaking of physical media, so I have my Steelbook. I bought a Steelbook off of Amazon, which is like the old school like look of the movie, and I bought the 4K, and so yeah, I pull out the 4K, went to watch that. Sucker was scratched in the middle. Man, physical media doesn't last forever, and it's real sucks when you have to buy a digital copy in the middle because your physical media failed.
Did it not come with a digital copy with it?
I think I might have sold it. I don't remember. That was a long time ago, but yeah.
I mean, also for a 4Ks and Blu-rays are hard to scratch. I mean, I understand you have children, and that makes all of that
Dramatically
kind of go
easier.
out the window. Yeah.
I don't know. I've always found that they damage quite easily, but I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy. Video games definitely are a little stronger, but man, movies get damaged so easily. Um, okay, so yeah, definitely related with Alex with um how he daydreams. Remember doing that as a kid as well. So and kind of being the teacher's pet. So that part of Alex kind of spoke to me, which is not nearly as bad as somebody saying that they can relate to him in the beginning, because that's kind of weird. And that's probably what most people think when they see it on like college students' dorm rooms, the Clockwork Orange posters, right?
Yeah, he's definitely one of those people when you see that meme where it's like you missed the point if you idolize them starter pack, and like that definitely is not one of the ones you should be idolizing.
No, I just and I would never say this is like a character that's meant to be idolized. He's just an interesting person that you're this really twisted, following through these twisted events. I mean, you don't have to like him.
Oh no, I don't think you're supposed to. And if you do like him, then there's something wrong
True.
because he is definitely a piece of shit.
I noticed this time for the first time. So the political guy comes into Alex's room in the jail, and he like looks at the Beethoven picture for a second, and I thought that was pretty snazzy because that's foreshadowing that Beethoven's going to be what really messes this up for the him.
I also thought it was funny that he had like all of the like the crosses and like religious stuff, and then a bunch of like naked women like right next to it, and it's like, well,
Oh,
I mean,
really?
it's yeah,
I
it's like,
noticed
well, I
that.
mean, you're stuck in prison, like I guess you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah. The prison walking square having a circle on the ground with a pyramid on the wall. Kind of weird. Maybe some Illuminati. Who knows? Um, let's see. The iconic scene of him in the chair and the Ludovico technique. I mean, have you heard the stories like how he like got his cornea got scratched when having to do this and so forth?
No, but that's not surprising. Like I'm assuming they probably hit him in the eye trying to hold him open with the clamps and
Yeah, it's just a crazy concept to be like your eyes plastered open and getting these drugs to make you ultra sensitive to this content that's actually making you nauseous, and all of a sudden you get something that's totally unrelated that you love and that's making you nauseous too. What a twisty little treatment.
no, I did come across one thing. So they said it made him sick to think about sex and violence.
Mm-hmm.
But so what if, so obviously violence is bad, but sex inherently is not bad. So like what if he like what happens if he falls in love? Obviously this is all just kind of hypothetical and just kind of playing out the side effects of what happens.
I think it's
Is
essentially they're sterilizing him.
Yeah, is it supposed to be against like violent sex, like where he like against rape, or
Mm-hmm.
just sex in general? Because I mean, they do bring the girl out on stage and she is naked,
Mm-hmm.
and he goes to touch her because she walks up to him, and there's nothing said, but clearly the objective is he's supposed to try to make an advance, not even
Right.
necessarily a violent advance, and is still nauseous from it. And I was like, well, damn, that's the pretty in line with sex is bad, don't do it. And it's like, goddamn.
Mm-hmm. And they admit it there. I mean, he's complaining about the music, and they say, "Oh, the background score. Well, that can't be helped. Just like it can't be helped that there's some good sex and some bad sex." So
Yeah,
yeah,
guess that checks. Yeah.
definitely not a perfect technique. So he gets released from prison, but gets fully rejected by basically everybody. Goes home and he's like, "Hey, mom and dad, who's that big guy over there?" And they're catering to their new son Joe over him. So he's dejected, and I noticed this time that he's staring off into the water, which enables the bum to kind of get next to him, and which leads to him getting beat up by the old drunkards, and then of course the scene where he runs back into his old droogies, who are now cops, and they beat the shit out of him and nearly
two
drown
of them.
him. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Including Dim.
Yeah.
Big dumb one. So yeah.
And then they take him and throw his head in this nasty water in a trough and beat the shit out of him and just leave him in the middle of nowhere.
I really like that how we're following the three of them whenever we go to the writer's house. So it's a POV shot, but if it's like looking or like following along with what's going on. Neat way to capture that. I swear I heard Steven Spielberg talking about this movie one time, and he did mention that the big muscular guy at the end who's assisting the writer was the guy who was in the Darth Vader outfit. I do need to confirm that, but I'm almost positive that's true.
I am pretty sure that is correct, because I feel like that Carl told me that the first time we watched it, but I was thinking that he was the guy in the Chewbacca suit, but I think he's well known for being the guy in the Chewbacca suit. So yes, I think it is the guy who was in the Vader costume, and obviously then James Earl Jones is the voice.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right, and then towards the end here, not only does the Beethoven trigger Alex to want to snuff it, but him singing and doing the singing in the rain stuff really, really brings it back for the writer for that torturous moment. So they're both triggered by the music. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so singing in the rain snaps him back, and it makes him realize that it is the person who did the attacking and not just the kid who was released from jail.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So, yep. And then that leads to them, like, I guess, poisoning his
wine, right?
His wine, yeah. Not
which he's like,
him, but...
and they're making him feel real awkward for being suspicious. But yeah, him doing the face plant in the spaghetti is pretty funny.
Yeah, and then
and when they take his head and they just pull him up, and he's like, oh. Oy.
Yep. And then they have him locked in this room in like a farmhouse or something in the top, and these huge speakers just playing directly up into the room until he decides to jump out the window.
The writer looking all demented, like
not even like pick up a chair and try to like break the door handle off or anything to get out or bust through the door. Just, I'm gonna get out the window, and then not even, maybe I can get on the roof and get to somewhere where I can get down easier. Nope, I'm just gonna jump right onto this concrete.
It's a very visceral fall too, because it kind of looks like they dropped a camera, so you kind of feel the fall more.
Yeah.
All right, and so now we have the ending here, where Alex is pretty much, after going to the hospital and getting some treatment, he's back to his old ways. We get the funny scene of the psychiatrist coming in and like, hey, what are you going to do in these social situations? And he's going right back to being an asshole. But this time he kind of has his thumb on the situation a little better, because the government, for doing this to him, he has the upper hand, so they'll give him whatever he wants as long as, he smiles and waves for the pictures or whatever. So, yep, whatever goes around, comes around again. So now he is getting exactly what he wants, and he kind of envisions this in this horny, like, hey, you're all going to stand around me and watch me bang this girl, because now he has the upper hand.
Yeah, he's cured
crazy
now.
Ending. Yeah, he was cured all right. Yeah, right.
Yeah, so he was cured of the Ludovico technique, whether it was because it only lasted so long, or the fall damaged him, or whatever.
But he's back to his old habits, which that's very relatable to true life. Like you or I, we probably have the urge to go rob a bank, but we're not going to, because we know what the consequences are. Where he had the control to be able to pull those things off, and then he lost it. But then it goes right back to his same temptations, but now he has control because the government owes him. So it's a different different situation for him. I think this is such a I had a lot of fun. I was kind of dreading this one, Joey, but I had a lot of fun talking about Clockwork Orange with you.
Well, I was dreading it watching it. I'm not even gonna front. when we delayed it the last time, when your laptop got messed up or whatever, I was kind of like, thank God I delayed watching this again. Um, it was not as bad as I remembered. It's still not like my cup of tea kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, like I just don't really jive with Kubrick, in general. So, but it was, there was more to it than I guess I remembered. And, I watched it, especially if it was pre-podcast, I've expanded what I've watched and stuff so much. So like maybe some of the stuff I missed on, I picked up on a little bit better this time outside of just you know, the weird, talking plus violence shenanigans going on kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Cool. Yeah.
So
Great points. And so it was just a 3 rating?
yeah, just a 3. Like I can appreciate like I said, the cinematography and the use of color and like the use of music, but it's just there are times like so even knowing that it was out of the book where they did like the language, the way they did it and stuff, like it just
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, it felt like it was one of those things where it was trying to be weird just for the sake of being weird, or to be different just for the sake of being different. So it's one of those things like if people want to watch it, I'll be like, yo, it's got a lot of cool stuff, but it's, to me, it doesn't do anything like personally. Like I'm not going to go out of my way to like try to watch it again. But I mean, I can't deny that it is a well-made movie. It's just not for me.
Fair. Cool. Yeah, big 5 for me, of course. One of my favorites of all time. So glad we finally talked about it. And yeah, even made me think about some new aspects. And cool. Anything else grind your gears about it?
Not that I can think of off the top of my head that I wanted to like make sure I bring up. Especially since you already had brought up the language and everything. I do remember thinking that when we see the writer again and he's paralyzed and that office room is set up the literal exact same way it was before.
Mm-hmm.
That maybe, I understand he was paralyzed, but he's got this big strong guy to help. It's like maybe we would rearrange so it's not different, so it doesn't just look like, because I feel like that would remind me of that same night over and over and over kind of thing. And also, like, I know it's like the 70s, but there were cameras already in the 70s, and this is in the future. Like maybe there would have been like a security cam for them to like see him through the door or something, like through a camera, as opposed to, because they had like what seemed like an intercom next to the door. So, but nothing like crazy absurd or anything like that I can super think of. I don't remember there being anything like egregious or anything like that. The car was a little silly. Like it was like
super loaded. It was low enough to the ground to go underneath the tractor trailer
with 4 people in like a 2-seater looking car, but
with the obvious projection behind them. Yeah, that's a pretty wild scene. Hogs of the road. All right, where are we going next? What movie are we gonna do next?
Alrighty, well, it's time for me to do a rewatch because that's how I alternate around here. So,
okay.
My quote was from Kick-Ass, specifically from the character Kick-Ass, but that part is actually irrelevant. It's actually this movie that I'm picking. It was directed by the same person who directed Kick-Ass, and that is Kingsman: The Secret Service. That was the first Kingsman movie.
I haven't seen it.
Oh, you haven't seen that before? Oh, dude. Hell yes. I'm down.
I haven't seen any Kingsman movies.
I've only seen this one. But this one, Colin Firth, Michael Caine, Sam Jackson. It's good stuff.
Cool. And I'm going with another one of my favorites. I want to talk about There Will Be Blood.
Why do you hate me, Justin? Why
I was being real nice for a while, picking all kinds of Treasure of the Sierra Madre, and doing this for me now. Taking it back.
Hey, calm down, Randall. I almost picked that. I did almost pick Clerks 2. And I thought about going back to Batman, but I know you just watched Batman and Robin, so it means you probably also watched Forever, probably.
Haven't revisited that one, but I've heard have you heard there's a Schumacher cut?
Of Forever?
Yeah.
I thought Schumacher did Forever and Batman and Robin.
But he made there was a lot of rework. I think he didn't write it. He just directed it.
Like a director's cut. Okay.
Well, I think they're re-releasing it, but there's just been like a bunch of like stuff online that there's this like different cut with like some more Schumacher-y stuff in there that it would be like the thing I ended up finding out with Batman and Robin, I probably told you already, but like it's a lot more consistently goofy compared to Forever. Forever's a lot kind of like awkward, like trying to be hard but goofy at the same time. So
well, I mean, yeah, when you have Two-Face and the Riddler, so you have a character who's like all jokes, and like it sucks because Tommy Lee Jones is a great actor. You had Drew Barrymore, who's a great actress. You had Jim Carrey for all of his anti-vaccine shit that he's done now. He's a great comedic actor and was like the perfect person to play that role. The next in Val Kilmer's not a bad actor. I don't think he was necessarily the best choice to replace Keaton, but that is what it is, and it just like I feel like there's all these parts and maybe they had just been arranged a little different. It would have been better as a whole. But from what I remember of Forever, I enjoyed it way more than Batman and Robin. Batman and Robin is just dumb one-liners and very silly. I mean, like Arnold is hamming it up, ice to meet you, chill out. So
cool. All right, so for more Batman and Robin talk, make sure to email the Angry Joes, not the Angry Joes, the Average Joes. Yeah, we're very angry, but we're average. The Average Joe's Movie Clubcast at gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you, and yeah, we'll start doing this a little more often, right?
Hopefully so, yes. Hopefully life will be more accommodating, and maybe I can even get back to doing some schlocky movies. That being said, Justin, why do we do this show?
Right. Because we love talking about movies.
All right.
Night, everyone.